What's up, everybody? How are you? How you doing? This is Real Talk Chronicles, baby. We starting a new year. We coming in black, baby. We're gonna let these OJs play it out for us for a minute now. Because this is how I'm feeling. I'm feeling good. It's a new year. Life is good. God is good. We can't complain about anything right now. So just everything is beautiful. This is Real Talk Chronicles. This is the new year. Happy New Year to everybody out there listening. We wish you all the best, prosperous years. We got reverends, we got Al, we got district leaders coming in here. I'm your host, Bill Foster. This is Real Talk Chronicles, and thank you for being with us in the new year. Happy 2021, and wishing you all the best. Um, Listen, what can I say? I got my co-host with me, Assemblyman Al Taylor. Al, well, William, I'm going to mute you again because you're making noise in the background as I'm giving my intro. So hold on for a second. So, so Assemblyman Al Taylor is in the building, baby. This is his show. This is my co-host. I got my special guest co-host, Kevin, Pastor Kevin Graves, in the building. We're going to bring him in and chop it up. And then, of course, we got the district leader, William Allen, in the building. We'll be talking to him later on in a few minutes. But Assemblyman Al Taylor, Reverend Al Taylor, how are you? Happy New Year, brother.
Man, I am excited, man, like a kid on Christmas Day with a brand new bike, baby. I am happy, glad to be here. What up? It's Real Talk. And just in case this is your first time jumping on here, there's no script. It can go all the way over there and then come back, and it can go right there too. So don't put us in a bubble. Certainly not me. Don't judge. Judge ye, least you be judged. I just give you a little
Tell him,
text right there.
don't judge,
Gus is
don't
glad
judge
that
you.
you up in here. I see my elementary school friend up in here. He looks a lot younger than I am, but I just want you to know we went to PS 123.
Who's that? You?
William Allen?
Oh, William Allen. Well, you know
You
what's
in
so
there too,
funny about?
Pastor?
Let me just, you know what's so funny about William Allen? William Allen and I went to college together, so that's a beautiful thing too. So, we're gonna get to William Allen in a minute because this show is about him too, also. But let's bring in our good friend, Pastor Kevin Graves, who's the special guest host tonight with us along this journey. Pastor Kevin Graves, what's up, brother? How are you, man?
I'm great. It's great being with my family again. So, like Reverend Al, like Reverend Taylor was saying, it's a brand new year. It's 2021, and I'm ready for a fresh start. So it's always a pleasure being a part of Real Talk Chronicles.
Yeah,
God bless
absolutely.
you.
Well, you are that special correspondent guest that we have and we love and you are doing things with us and we appreciate you more than you know. You really rock out a lot with us on Kevin's on the Wednesdays. Um, and that's a beautiful thing with Kevin and I. Kevin, shout out to Kevin Branzetti. We have some stuff
Yes.
coming up on his Wednesdays. But this is about Al Taylor tonight. Al, so
Oh, no, never.
but Al, before we go any further, tell me what's going on with you. How are you, brother? What's everything is good? The new year, everything
Every,
prosperous.
everything is beautiful. Thank you so much. Blessings, peace, and blessings to each and every one of you. This is just a great time to be alive. It is a great time to be in the kingdom, to do the kingdom work. There's a text, I've heard this over and over again, but it has never resonated so much more true for me than now. It says that the harvest is plenty, but the laborers are few. And so we all have, and we scrapple and grapple with our faith. And sometimes we don't want to be offensive, so we hold our faith to ourselves, or we don't have any, and we're not sure what we latch on to. And I'm here just saying, as a child of the Most High God, man, and when you let that loose, it is what it is. So, for example, if 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 you can think of your finest hour, that graduation, that wedding, you and your wife, man, it was Colgate commercials all day long. All you could see was smiles, beautiful smiles. And when you have that something inside of you that's intrinsic, it allows you to live in that space, in that moment with that. And so with my God, I'm able to be excited. Some people say a little too over the top, but you know what? When I was getting dusted out and everything in the middle, People didn't say those things about. If they did, I didn't know what the hell they were saying because I was in another world.
Exactly.
But now, man, I mean, this is a great time to be alive, regardless of what has happened. And this is a great opportunity to. You were playing the music, and what came to my mind was the single from The Wiz. And it's the day that the witch dies. And remember the Michael Jackson Wiz? It's a brand new day.
Yes.
Can you feel it? And you
Yes.
gotta know that it's a brand new day, but it's not a brand new day just because you psychologically feel it, but it's connecting yourself with the creator and watch what happens. I challenge everybody to start the new year out by growing closer to the creator. Just do that alone. The weight that you want, the money that you're trying to get, and everything you could imagine will happen if you stay faithful to that.
And that's an awesome thing. And listen, everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. I'm your host, Bill Forster. I got my co-host, Assemblyman Al Taylor, Reverend Al Taylor. This is his show tonight. This is the first Mondays of the month. This is Real Talk with Assemblyman Al Taylor. But we have a special guest always with us. He is part of the Real Talk Chronicles family. So he is our special guest co-host, Pastor Kevin Graves. And now, without further ado, we're going to bring in District Leader William Anthony Allen into the building to let him talk. This is my college dude right here. This is a Harlemite. He is a friend of the family. So, Brother William Allen, what's going on, brother?
Brother, thank you for having me. Pastor, all these ministers in the house. I feel like I'm at Easter time.
Well, that's why we're here, William, because we figured we should double up for you because you ain't coming again to Easter.
So we're gonna give you a double impartation. In the name of Jesus.
Al and Kevin, I'm a duck for Will. Well, you know what? He's running for office, so I'm assuming due to this pandemic, he would be in church a lot now. But you know what's so funny? William, my college dude, it's always good to see you. Happy New Year to you first and foremost. I hope everything is blessed with you and your family.
Yes, indeed.
But I'm going to go around. I'm going to ask you, how are you doing during this pandemic?
It's been very challenging for me and my family, but anybody around us. In fact, I just left a job. My last day at this particular job, national action, was December 31st, and I got to tell you, it was the roughest 2 years I've ever experienced. And then it got hit by the pandemic. So first 2019 was rough in terms of the amount of Black folks that needed help, and then when this situation came about, oh my God, it's been challenging. And I'm just grateful and faithful that I had the skills to be of some value to people.
Awesome. Kev, Pastor Graves, Al, how are y'all doing during this pandemic?
Graves.
Yeah, Pastor Graves, how are you holding up during this pandemic?
Following the instructions. Social distancing, washing my hands, wearing my mask when I go out, following the instructions. Not believing the hype of all these conspiracy theories that are out there, but just following the instructions, and more importantly, listening to what God is saying.
That's right.
And being obedient to what God is saying, and receiving a word, but also sharing it with the community as well. Stressing the importance of mask wearing and social distancing. Look, whether folks listen or not, they can't say they didn't get the information. So that's pretty much where I'm at and what I'm doing as far as the community. I haven't been doing a great deal of footwork because of the pandemic. So mostly what I've been doing as far as community has been through God bless you, brother, has been through virtual media. So just utilizing Zoom and StreamYard, being a part of Real Talk Chronicles, as you know, Bill, and Kevin, if you're listening. So I'm just really right now in a lot of ways enjoying this time. And what do I mean by how do you enjoy your time in a pandemic? My enjoyment is appreciating what God has given me, and He has given me life. So that is my appreciation.
Wow.
So you know what's so funny? Speaking of that, this month we got a great lineup. Everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. Um, I'm just gonna mute you real quick, Will, just for a second. So, so everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. If you like it, share. We're on YouTube. Shout out to the people on YouTube watching. Shout out to our Facebook family. We got some shows coming up for you. I'm just going to give you a little brief synopsis of what's going on coming up in January. Um, Malika, we're gonna go hard on this COVID thing because this vaccine is out here. I'll ask these three individuals again, what would they do with this vaccine? But we're having a show tomorrow on people in the first line that have taken the vaccine. What do they feel about it? How's that going? So tune into Malika's show uh, on the, I think, is it the 18th? With Allison Williams, Real Talk with Allison Williams. I'm bringing in Dr. Marilyn Corder, my cousin, who is a chief staff member in the DMV area, and she's going to talk about uh, taking the vaccine. A lot of times, these are people of color that are taking the vaccine. So this is something that we need to be very cognizant of too, and get some intel on this vaccine. You know, myths, disclaimers, and things like that. We have Eric Adams coming to the table. We're talking about domestic violence this month. We have financial literacy coming up this month. Yo, January, we kicking butt, everybody. This is Real Talk Chronicles. So if you like it, share it. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to it, push the thumbs button. So Will Allen, my man, William Allen, we got him in the building. We're gonna let him get situated. He moving and grooving around. We're gonna let him lock in. Lock in, brother, because we need you here.
I was trying to switch from my phone to my iPad, but you're using a different program, so it's kind of hard to do that.
I'm using StreamYard.
Yeah, but I was on my iPad and I was trying to put it on there, but I don't see where the code is at.
Well, there's no code with StreamYard. All you got to do is click on it, brother.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, don't make it harder. That's what's wrong. Stay out that iPad world. Come into the Droid.
No, I'm saying on the phone, I can barely see Al Taylor. He's sitting so far back, he looks like an ant.
Hey!
Well, you know what? How about this? I'm going to enhance everybody. Everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. We are doing our thing. We waiting for Xavier. There you come. We got to wait for Pastor Graves to come back. So, Will Allen, let me ask you a question.
Is that better?
Yeah, that's better. So let me ask you a question, brother. You tell us about you. Everybody out there that's listening, this is a good brother. Shout out to everybody that's watching. We see you, Gerald.
Something's wrong with the sound.
We'll see you. I'm Colin. Shout out to Colin. See you, Audrey. How are you? So, Will, please.
Something's going on with the sound.
Al, you got me 5x5. Kevin, Pastor Grace.
Sounded distorted. Your sound was sounding distorted. Am I sounding distorted?
No.
Yeah, but you are. Okay, I don't know. Okay.
Well, yeah, that happens every now and then. Go with the flow. It's Real Talk.
Okay, I hear Al. Al heard clearly. I wasn't hearing Bill.
Okay.
It'll happen, but watch his lips. You're gonna get really good. You're gonna know exactly what he said.
Okay.
He's laughing now.
Okay, I'm trying.
Yeah. So Al, help me if he doesn't hear me. If William doesn't hear me, William, tell William to elaborate on. Just tell us who he is, what made him get into the politics, and what led him up to running for city council.
I don't know what the hell you said.
Okay, so let me.
Why don't you repeat it, Al? What did he say?
That's what he said. He said, I'm going to say this, and then, Al, you repeat it in case he doesn't hear it.
Thank you.
So now I'm going to repeat it. Okay, seriously, my bad. Hey, listen, he wanted us to know what got you, when did you start into politics, and what led you into running for city council? Give us your backstory. Tell us about it. For the people that don't know William Allen.
Yeah, I'll give the brief version of it. What got me into politics, I guess I've been in it all my life. I was always attracted to it as a kid. From elementary school, being elected my class president. It was election time at that time, and the presidential election was taking place. And the teacher decided to have a contest in class, and I won. And then one day I found myself on my bike. I was about maybe 11 or 12. And that's where I met the late, great city councilman, Fred Samuel, and those members of the Community Democratic Club of Harlem. They adopted me, put money in my pocket, I moved from being a poor kid to the rich kid in the neighborhood. Thanks to these people. I mean, I ran everybody's errands on Scribers Row. I was the paper boy. I cleaned up the backyards. I swept down the stoops. I mean, I was hustling.
I'm a
And I
hustler,
had
baby.
pockets full. I had pockets full thanks to these great people. And I've never left this since. As Al Taylor tell you, I became the first teenager appointed to a community board in the city, and then became the youngest trustee of a school district in the state. And based on those experiences, I just been engaged. What makes me run for city council now? Why not? I mean, what we're now seeing that Harlem is going through, I'm greatly concerned whether or not our culture or anybody who are just basically working or middle class, whether or not they can afford to live in Manhattan. The rents are astronomical. Going out to eat, it's like a wedding anniversary. I mean, it's just so expensive, and this really got to be addressed. And I don't know that the city council can lead all those discussions, but I know there's several things that the city council person has that are tools for our community. One, they make the appointments to the community board. They help to identify the most active people in the neighborhood to come together several times a month and talk about where we should be heading and how do we address issues. So I see that as very, very important for me. And I want to be a part of that process of making sure that community boards are a lot stronger. The other is, as we begin to look at police community relations, we always forget that every precinct has a community council. And right now, the city only hands the council a couple $100 a month. I said, hold on, how do you do outreach and be effective if you don't even have a budget? You know, and so I really want to make the precinct community council a lot stronger, especially in terms of the kind of dialogue that we need if we're talking about reimagining. I'm not talking about defunding, because that's a little crazy for me, but reimagining in terms of how we can create a department that we can all be proud of, whether as employees or as folks that receive the services. And so that's why I'm running for city council. I just want to be the great connector that bring people together to show them that they are the government, that we each are the government, and that we all have a role to play, and we can make life better for all of us.
That's awesome. I appreciate that. I don't know if you can hear me yet. Can you hear me yet?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, awesome. So let me ask you a question. First and foremost, tell people what a city councilman is. You elaborated on certain things that you would do as a city councilman, but for those out there that are afraid to ask a question, what is a city councilman? Can you give us some insight on that first?
Okay, I think I read your lips this time. The city council person is the representative of a district or a community in terms of its voice and how city services are delivered, coordinated, and managed, right? And so if you have issues with the sanitation department, with the police department, with schools, with libraries, with potholes, that city council person should be able to be like the district advocate. You think of the New York City public advocate. Well, I see city council members as district advocates, making sure that residents' concerns are promptly addressed and not lost. I see the role as one of being an educator. A lot of time people don't know who to turn to, you know, and that office needs to be able to guide people, support people, making sure that they feel that this government belongs to them and that they
We lost you.
that this government belongs to all of us.
Awesome. I appreciate that. Kevin and Al, anytime you want to chime in and ask William some questions, please just let me know. Let me ask you a
Yeah,
question.
yeah.
You have a question, Kevin?
My
You coming in choppy.
on the I'm coming in choppy.
Yeah. Go ahead. Let me see if we hear you.
Okay.
Everybody got him now? Go ahead.
Is that
I
better?
hear you.
Okay. Can you hear me, William?
I can hear you.
Okay. What's the role? What what is the role, or what should be the role of the clergy when it comes to community boards? I guess I could phrase it this way. Do you see the clergy taking a prominent role within the community boards, or should we be, or maybe you're not seeing it, but maybe we should be taking a more prominent role within the community?
Well, the clergy has always played a prominent role in community boards. In fact, most of government institutions, if you go to hospitals, you see chaplains. If you go to the police department, you see chaplains. The fire department, the Department of Corrections, and so our government has had a history of clergy being very active in these kind of institutions. When I was first appointed to Community Board 10 as a teenager, all the leading pastors in the community was on Community Board 10. They all were there. Muslims, Catholics, Pentecostal, regular Baptists, Conference Baptists, everybody was present in that room. And I think because of that, I think the community had more power. Because you had folks that came into the room that also had institutions and they had constituencies. And so therefore, when that group took a vote on something, it really meant something, right? And so I think there's a huge role for the clergy to play. And for us, I mean, we're the children of the legacy of Dr. King and Malcolm X. And, you know, anybody in our culture who doesn't know Malcolm X and Dr. King, or even for that matter, Dr. Sharpton, we know that what the Black clergy has particularly played in stabilizing and protecting us. And it still happens today. I mean, you look at Reverend Al Taylor, who is the Assemblyman of the 71st. You know, he's clergy, and he comes out of that fine tradition of Black ministers who see not only the service that they do in their church building, but they reach out to everybody in the community, and they provide a tremendous amount of leadership to issues that sometimes we need folks like that to lead us in.
Awesome.
Amen.
Al, do you have a question for him, or I'll go on?
I have a question, but I also want to add on to what Pastor K said. And I believe that there should be more involvement on the part of our clergy, pastors and reverends. And history will show, and I want to add Adam Clayton Powell to that list of
Adam Powell, that's right.
That are tone setters, and you're speaking to the community that you represent, your congregation, constituents that have been oftentimes left out or marginalized. And when you bring that activity to the forefront, as William mentioned, people take notice that, hey, he or they represent a base. That's a denomination of folks, so they're hearing you. But even more importantly than that, prior to COVID-19, every elected official, except for me, want to parade through everybody's church on Sunday to do a how y'all doing. And I think if the church is going to be relevant, then the constituents and the congregants that they talk to have to be talked to in real time. So you take young folks that go away to Morehouse and they go to all these colleges and people scrape together and they're happy that they went away to school. And then there's a breakaway from the church to whatever they typically get involved in as a vocation. And what I would suggest is, why not groom people from the community that you sent to these schools and come back and let them work as William Allen did, working in tandem out with local Democratic clubs or whatever political clubs that are there. Work with them so you're getting the education, you're understanding the system, because they're not necessarily separate from each other. So now, instead of waiting for someone to walk in and say, well, let me introduce you to the next city council, let me introduce you to the next assembly person. No, we good, my brother. Don't come up in here. We got somebody right here that we've watched, we've grown, and they're ready to take those reins. And we need to put them there because you know the moral fabric is there. You know they have a heart for the community. And collectively, these other clergies and reverends and everybody come together will support those kinds of folks. So we need to prepare them and not make them independently separate. So for
Yeah.
William, here's the question to you. We're in difficult times, and I love what you said, that it's probably not going to be city council that brings all the issues together or resolve all of those, but it's going to be a combination of working in government. But as a city council candidate, how do you, or what would you propose is more important, or how would you work them together? Affordable housing, real. I can live in my neighborhood. Affordable housing, not that AMI that connects us to Westchester and Fort Lee, New Jersey, and the amount of vacant storefronts. How can we bring housing and opportunities to our community? Which one of those will be a priority, or do you think there's an opportunity to mix the two?
So I know what the city council can do and not do, right? I know the fact that this city council have shaped the modern Harlem. Up until the late 80s, early 90s, the city of New York owned 82% of the real estate in Harlem. And when David Dinkins lost, new person got in, Rudy Giuliani, for some reason, the interests of the community moved away from its interests, and this land got transferred to market rate developers. It also cut the budget of clergy. If you know, our Harlem churches or Harlem Congregation for Community Improvement was started by Harlem ministers.
That's right.
They were given a $200 million budget by David Dinkins. And when David Dinkins lost, that budget was cut by 53%. So I recognize, in order to be an effective city council member, I have to make sure that the churches and the institutions in Harlem are meeting with me and working with me on the issues that they see that are important. I want to be a representative, not a monarchy. I'm not going to go down to city council and say, listen, this is my priority. No. The community has to come to terms in terms of what is its priority. And I believe the community has been constantly saying that affordable housing is a priority, but they've also been talking about making sure that folks that live in the community have access to the economic growth, that they are also the business owners. It makes no sense to walk down all these streets in Harlem and you walk past a lot of businesses where the folks don't even live here. In fact, the block that I live on is the only block where you can find Black-owned businesses. That's on 116th Street.
Yep.
Go to another block and find me people of African descent. So my point to you is I just learned a lot from Fred Samuel when he's a council member, and he always brought the tough decisions back to the community board, back to the state assembly rep and the state senator, the congressman. He said, listen, I cannot go to City Hall and just do a lot of talking. I have to go down there knowing that I have a team and that the way we make decisions, we make it collectively. And so therefore, then once I go down as a rep, I know that I'm going down there with the will of a collective group that had took a survey or took a vote and say, hey, here's the priorities that we want you to go down to City Hall with. And so therefore, even if those priorities are not passed, then we lost collectively and we didn't lose this as an individual. So as you know, the city counts on a whole lot of money other than its own taxes. We're talking about state funds that come through Al Taylor and Brian Benjamin. You're talking about federal funds that come from the congressional representatives. All these monies have an impact on our community. And so we have to make sure that there's a dialogue, a collective dialogue with each of us as we go to our prospective legislative bodies to really make things happen. Somebody sent me a text earlier, and they were talking about politics, but I had to say to them, I said, I hear what you're saying, but tell me how what does that have to do with making sure the garbage is collected and the potholes is filled and our streets are safe? Because sometimes people, when we start talking politics, we're not talking government. And government is actually about the equal delivery of services.
Yes.
And so those are the things that we really got to address. Are our streets clean? Are store owners keeping their sidewalks clean? You know, are we proud of our streets? Are we making sure that all the municipal services are doing their job for us like they're doing for the people that live on Park Avenue?
Absolutely.
You know, so those are the things that, you see, when I'm in the city council, I want to be a government political educator. I want to empower people with information. I want them to be aware of how this thing works and function and how they ought to participate. With the community boards, I like to see it redesigned. Okay, it's 50 members, but I want to make sure that every inch of the Board 10 area is represented by every couple of blocks. I don't want to see 50 people all coming from Lenox Terrace or some other complex. I don't want it to be the elite. I want to see it diverse. You know, I want to see just as many members coming out of public housing on that board as we see people coming out of the wealthy condos and the co-ops. It has to be a strong collective vote where we all come together and talk about what our destiny is as a community. That's going to make the difference. And that's how people are going to learn how the city council functions, how the state assembly, state senate, congressional. We got to teach our people, I swear. We got to teach them how this stuff works so they can know how to participate. Because right now, you ask the average African American, well, how does this work? They don't know.
Right.
And that's why sometimes they don't vote. They don't see the connection. Yeah. We got public schools now where you could not name who the PTA president anymore. Back in the day when we had decentralized schools, a school board, we knew everybody. Now you don't know what's happening in some of these buildings. Absolutely. So my whole thing is about education. And that's why I think Adam Clayton Powell did. When Adam Clayton Powell went to the city council as the first Black in the city council in the city of New York, he went there to learn and to bring back information and to empower his community. And that's the kind of city councilman I want to be. And guess what, guys? Most of my jobs have been through the clergy, by the way. I think Al knows this. You know, my pastor and mentor, the late Reverend Dr. Preston Washington, was the founder of Harlem Churches for Community Improvement. Okay, I was his first chief of staff. That was a faith-based organization. And then when I left there, I went and worked with went up to Yonkers and worked with another ecumenical group. Then came back to Harlem and worked for a West Harlem ecumenical group. And now I just left a job with National Action Network, which is also faith-based. So I didn't plan it that way. But those are really the institutions that last more than any other institution in our community. And if we get pastors and folks in those institutions to be more engaged, I believe that our community will get better and stronger. Not enough pastors, I hate to say this, are engaged. They need to be educated too. They need to come to the table. A lot of churches have sold their buildings and their property to developers. And now those churches are gone, you know. And to me, when you had all those church buildings in our community and our property came value, that was probably also the time to create a wealth fund to begin looking at and other kind of investments that we could have made as a community. I mean, the government doesn't have to be the only one to hey, with this new project, you got to do 30% here. What about the development project that we have done in the ecumenical community? Are we also saying, okay, with this project, we're going to make sure that we're also building affordable housing too? So I'm saying everybody got to be responsible. Everybody just can't be passing the buck to somebody else.
Awesome.
I think, William, I'm sorry to cut you. You hit on something a couple of times, which is spot on, and it's education. A lot of churches attempted to do good deeds and lost their property to developers that were ruthless, and they ended up with no church, no property, nothing. And so it was almost like there was a, how can I say, it was a diabolical plot just to see how many properties you can get, scoop in, because people will come in and tell you how much they love God and bless you and bless you.
Yeah.
And they can give you promises of what it's going to look like. But when we become educated, when we become aware and understand we don't have all the answers, but that we need additional help. And when you start looking for that help, then you can bring someone in besides that good old pastor that everybody loves, that great deacon from the president of the deacon board, but they don't have the skill sets to be in the water with these sharks, and they have no
That's right.
idea. But everybody will like, Pastor, go ahead. We trust what you said, and then he gonna follow what they said, and then they're gonna follow what he said. They said to him, and you have nothing.
That's right.
And it is happening, and it's not all over yet. They're still doing it in other parts of Brooklyn and so forth like that. But we have to be conscious of those things. But it's education.
It's education.
The people, I'm going to speak from my perspective. I believe the people, and this is no disrespect to anyone, but I think the least of those in my district, they're the people that need me the most, but don't have the bandwidth and the understanding of why it's important to have someone like me there to protect their interests. So that if you're living in public housing, if you're living in a squatter tenement and you need help, you're not going to be the ones that are politically active. You're not going to be the ones that can come in and drop a check in the campaign, but you need those services. The fight is for those people, and it's so hard. The fight is for our people, and it's so hard to get them to understand because they have generations of disconnect. Now it's like, you're gonna do what? I mean, literally, it honestly, I'm gonna be honest, like, I've had my feelings hurt, not because of somebody said something that's so crazy, like, yo, but it was like, dude, I was on this block with you. I was in that hallway with you. We scrambled a little bit together. So now I'm talking to you and your grandchild, and y'all talking to me like I'm Willie Nuck that just showed up in a suit trying to get on. Oh, we don't need that. And the people that don't care about them can come in and slap their hand on the back and keep on moving, and they will not get the services that they need. NYCHA has been neglected for over 20 years. Between the federal government and the city, they have not received the money. The state has given them monies, but it's not the state's responsibility. It's the federal government. That's HUD. They were supposed to provide. And we got a governor that was here, and he was part of HUD. We haven't had decent services for over 20 years minimum to NYCHA facilities. That's why the infrastructure is shot out. They just stopped putting money there.
So let me ask you a question. Let me jump in real quick. Well, let me ask you first. You're running for a councilman in Harlem. Tell people what's your that demographics is.
The boundaries.
Yes.
So the 9th district runs from like 110th Street to 160th Street. So I'm sorry, like really 106th Street. So the southernmost development is Lakeview Apartments. That's adjacent to Central Park. And it's just a very small sliver. That's why I said 110th Street first, right? And then it goes all the way up to, it ends at Wrangell Houses. Now on the western border, it travels along Morningside Park. Then it slivers up Common Avenue. It goes over to Amsterdam, and at 141st Street, it makes a right turn and go down St. Nicholas. Then it goes up St. Nicholas, and around 147th Street, I think it turns back up to Amsterdam and come back around. But St. Nicholas is really the known western border of the district. Now, the eastern border is Park Avenue, and then it cuts back over to Madison Avenue, back over to Park Avenue. It's kind of like zigzag. And at 125th Street, the eastern border is the East Harlem River that runs past Esplanade Gardens and Harlem River Houses.
Okay, awesome. So I have two questions for you. With that being said, dealing with the NYCHA, the housing in that district that you just talked about, what change? I've heard a lot of good things that you and Al talked about. But what exactly would be your first thing of interest that you would pinpoint your interest on? And who are you running against? Somebody? Is this a vacant seat, or is there somebody in this seat right now?
It's a vacant seat.
Okay.
The incumbent is not running for, to my best of my knowledge, the incumbent is not running for re-election.
Okay.
And that's what made me make my decision.
Awesome. And what would be your first point of interest when you dealing with NYCHA?
I come from an organizing background, and I think NYCHA's problem stems from the fact that the population is not viewed as having any power. And I'm talking about not how white folks see it. Black folks see it like that in leadership. They think that folks in public housing don't vote and they don't claim their power. And so if we know that, and we have a large number of folks living in public housing, and we count on that for affordable housing, then we really got to be able to make sure that we're organizing the people that live in public housing. Now, I know Al Taylor, like me, we go to tenant meetings at public housing, and often we see maybe 12 people sitting up in a meeting, and they tend to be just women, and they're over the age of 70.
Right.
And that got to change. That got to change, because if you want to get control over NYCHA, which is an asset for our city and our community, then we have to change the mentality of those who also benefit from those services. We got to organize the people. We got to organize it. And one of the things that Reverend Washington taught me when we had HCI, he said, listen, he said, not only are we going to invest in the bricks, we have to invest in the people. He made sure there was plenty of money to do tenant organizing and responsible leadership. Because he kept saying, hold it, we done renovated all these buildings, then we come back, the doors are off the hinge, the elevator's full of piss. Like, what's going on? And people are waiting for maintenance to come clean up something when you can clean it up yourself. We got to create a culture where people have a sense of ownership. Even my building, even if it's a private building, but if I come out of my apartment and I see a piece of trash in front of my door, I'm not going to call the super to come clean it up. I'm going to do it myself. Absolutely. We got to change the culture, so how we look at our community and how we choose to be responsible. And I got to tell you, once we begin to do that, I think that people will see us differently in terms of how they make these kind of investments. But when people don't see you having any power or exercising any power, they're going to go to other priorities. They're going to go to other priorities. So with public housing, if we can make improvements in the buildings and this and that, but if we don't change how people are engaged in the life of the development of their community, it's not going to change things.
I think
we got to make
we have power.
We got to make sure that the people gain and be responsible for their power.
Right. Yeah. Hold on, Pastor. Let me just say this, everybody. I think that's an excellent answer. Al, I don't know. Did you see what Genevieve wrote in the thing? Everybody out there, this is Real Talk Chronicles. I'm your host, Bill Forster, with my co-host, Assemblyman Al Taylor, with my special guest host, Pastor Kevin Graves, and we have my man, District Leader William Anthony Allen, in the building, running for City Council. And this is about right now, Real Talk Chronicles, January. We blowing up, baby. We really putting stuff out there on the map. This is probably the one show. There's a lot of people out here that got a lot of shows, but ain't no people keeping it realer than us right now. Genevieve said another form of education is teaching about investing. We need more programs to help direct our community on how to invest as well. We always told to save. However, learning about investing, especially our young folks, would be beneficial for our future generations as well as the community as a whole. Let me ask you a question, and I'm going to direct this to you, Pastor Graves. Will and Al, please chime in on this. Our generation here, we were taught manners and respect.
Yeah.
A lot of that is missing, just like Tashana said. Sense of pride of where you live, where in lieu of what you were talking about, Will, like picking the garbage up when you left. I do it in my building when I leave out on Riverside. I'll pick that garbage up, because if I see it in there, and it is disheartening to say, well, who just threw this on the floor and didn't pick it up? Like, or what? And then, we go old school. Do you do this in your house? You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, where do you guys think, and I'll start with you, Pastor Graves, and then I'll go to you, Al Taylor, and I'll finish with you, Will. Where do you guys think the disconnect is in what's happening now in just sense of pride with our youth, our just people in general, and to where it left off with us? Because I go around and I speak to schools all the time, and as I tell people all the time, there's starting to be a disconnect with me in speaking, because now I'm turning in from the OG to the yo, like really, like you not me. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a real disconnect. Well, I'm gonna mute you because I'm getting a lot of feedback. So with that, or mute yourself and then come in when you get a chance. So with that being said, Pastor, where do you think the disconnect is, and how do we can reconnect with them? Go ahead.
Much of this starts within our family.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe it starts with laying the foundation of knowing who you are and taking pride in where you live. I'm going to quote the former heavyweight champion of the world, Muhammad Ali. He said, "The people aren't in the slums are in the people."
Mm.
And we have to understand exactly what that means. Even though I may be living in the Brownsville section of Brooklyn or East New York, but my home, my apartment where I live, does not look like what it does on the outside. Why? Because even though I may be living in a situation where there's poverty around me, I don't have to demonstrate that because number one, I'm here. This is my home, and I take good pride in where I live. And I think we also, and I'm hearing great, terrific words. Assemblyman Al Taylor, you talked about education, which is extremely important. And I don't think we value that enough. We are a wealthy people. We have wealth. And I'll give you an example. I had shared this with William a few days ago. I saw a statistic in the Nielsen report where in 2017, the Black community accounted for in consumer spending $1.2 trillion, a number that is projected to go up in 2021 to $1.5 trillion. So we spend money, we're working, many of us, we're fueling the economy. But where are our resources going? Are we investing in our community? Are we investing in the infrastructure of our community? Or how long does it take for $1 to stay in our community? Or are we taking that dollar that we have earned and we're spending it in someone else's community, making someone else's community rich instead of building within our own? So, and we're going to touch on this in a matter of days, Bill. We're going to bring in a pastor and we're going to talk about the importance of financial literacy.
Absolutely.
And I think this is very timely. So I'm all for solutions. Okay, we may be lacking in this particular area or that particular area, but I also want to touch on some solutions. What can we do today in terms of bringing in people who know a lot more than we do? How can you educate us? How can show us how to build? And not only that, I don't want to just show, I want people who have a mind to build. Like in the book of Nehemiah, it's one thing to show someone something, and it's like, okay, that's nice. Thank you for showing that to me. But I want individuals who have a mind to build, who are saying, yes, I love my community, and I don't want to see it this way. So what can we do collectively to build on this situation? So, and it comes down to, again, if you see garbage on the floor, you say, well, that's not my responsibility. I didn't put it there. And unfortunately, that is the attitude. You say, well, that's not my problem. And that is our problem with, even within, this is a societal issue. It's not just a Black community issue. Many of us, we're saying, you know what? It's not my problem. Mind your business. Take care of your own house. And that is why, and that's another reason why we're at where we're at today, because it's everyone for themselves. Mind your own business. Take care of your own house. Don't worry about what's going on across the street. I'll stop there.
Awesome. I'm going to come to you, Al Taylor. Everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. I'm your host, Bill Forster. I got my co-host with me, Assemblyman Al Taylor, in the building. We have our special guest host, Pastor Kevin Graves, and we have our special guest, William Allen, running for City Council hopeful. This is Real Talk Chronicles. If you like it, share it, subscribe to it on YouTube. I got some comments on YouTube. I want Al the comment, but I just want to make everybody know on YouTube. I see you, Suzanne, Mark. I see you. Happy New Year's to you, brother. He said, Bill, if you can't ask, has gentrification destroyed certain Black communities in Harlem, if there's a true neighborhood in Harlem like before. I'm gonna let y'all answer that later on, but I just want to let you guys out here in YouTube know, and also on Facebook and that I see you, and I'm just going to try to read your thing. Zabala, she'll be on tomorrow. She'll be one of the health people with Malika talking about what it's like to take the vaccine. So thank you, my neighbor Nabala. She said really good points, Will. How do you change the culture of thinking that it's not my job? Because as you said, it's our responsibility. That's a beautiful thing. I'm gonna let you get to that. We can always come back to this. Tashana said, Sally, a whole generation was lost when youth programs were cut and cracked with running rampant. How do we nurture our teens of today? How do we save our culture? Shout out to Evangelist Robert Rice. I know you have some health issues. I hope you're doing good, brother. Appreciate you. I love you. You know, my little brother, I got you. Everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. If you're on YouTube, subscribe to it, like it, share it. If you're on Facebook, share the button and let everybody know what's going on. Let me tell you something. I've been one of the top promoters in the city for years. Al was too. And Al, will tell you, the hardest thing to promote is positivity. And let me tell you something. That's real talk. So everything. Thank you, William Allen, for being with us today. William Allen, we're going to get back to these questions that people ask, but I just don't want to deviate. But I'm going to let Al chime in, and then Will, I'm going to let you answer, and then we'll go ahead.
Wow. I want to say Pastor Kev really brought it home. There's not one answer, but it's several. And he concluded with everybody's kind of self-centered and on their own thing. And so I think there is the interior, a reflection of ourselves and our household, how we are raised, how my mother, my grandmother, and there's always been that connection between the grandparent and the mother, and sometimes even the great-grandparent in that community, whether you were living in public housing. So that so full transparency, I lived in Dykeman public housing after moving out of Harlem, and I enjoyed it. And you couldn't tell me I was living in public housing because it was so well maintained. But it dealt with the people that were there, and then you also have to have the exterior. So when you step out of bounds and you're not living or conforming in that place, then you would get put out. And back then, people kind of in my complex, people treasured wanted to live in nature. Now it's like, I don't care, but I just need a place to live. So they had stringent rules that will put you out. And if I'm the bad element in my family, and my family can't get me to see straight and understand, then they have to take me off the lease and get me out, or they'll take the whole family out. That was real talk. You would be gone. So I think when we look at that, it's a combination of things. We have to have a self-behavior that we're taking care of our own business and being responsible, not necessarily not minding your business, but if there's trash in your doorway, fix it, clean it up. But also, when we talk about the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s, which is the economics of the game, how long does that dollar circulate? I would say it doesn't come back. That dollar comes out of your pocket, it's gone. And if you're walking from the area where William Allen pointed out for Wrangell houses and go south, going down to 116th, as you're going down Frederick Douglass 8th Avenue, you're not going to find more than, I'm going to say 5 or 6 Black-owned businesses that I'm aware of going straight. You'll get Denny Mo, you may get Charlie's, and you may find 1 or 2. I mean, I may be oversimplifying it, but the point I'm making is that money is going out the window, hand over fist in our communities. You're not getting the services that you desire, that you deserve, and you're being disrespected. The quality of what you buy is not there. And then you're being disrespected by the people that are operating these facilities. But time and time again, people go in, they come to me, they call me, they stop me on the street, and they say, yeah, you know what, they selling bad food, or this guy's so disrespectful. And they want me to go in, pull my shirt open like I got an S on my chest. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go talk to the dude. Now give me some data. Okay, da-da-da-da-da-da. So I go talk to this person. I said, now, if this person came to me and they said that they were in your store and you disrespected them by doing that, that's not good. And then he would say, well, that's not exactly what happened. But now the person that tell me that don't want to be a part of it. So I'm saying, then why don't you put together a petition and you get 50 people, I'll stand with you, but I can't beat this man by myself when y'all going in the store buying his product. Come on. And the same thing in the other store. If you're selling bad food, outdated stuff, and you're moaning, why do you keep going there when he's disrespectful to your daughter and your children and your grandchildren, and you go there anyway? We've got to stop settling for that. And I don't mind seeing somebody get shut the hell down because none of that money comes back in that district. I'm not losing any sleep about it at all. And that's a consciousness that we have to see. So maybe in this negative post-COVID, maybe we can find one or two small places that a black person, a person of color, that it maybe is part of a cohort that we can put together and say, this is what it looks like. And it could be a high school and a college student kind of scenario. We're going to show you what it looks like, economic empowerment and understanding the bigger picture and use that as a model. And if I can help, that's what I want to do. Because until we start to see it, we don't understand that it's possible. Now, some of us, but the majority of us, until we see it, we don't think that it's possible.
Well, I think that's awesome because the beautiful thing about it is that you're still a politician, even though you're a co-host of Real Talk Chronicles, and that's a beautiful thing. So you have answers too that people will ask. So, William, we're going to let you answer that, and then we're going to go to these questions that people have asked because you are right now the person that's running for office, and I want to give you an opportunity. I know you're supposed to be coming back on the 20th also, and I'm trying to set up some real good things where, I'll have some questions and people will just ask you, not more or less a debate kind of thing, but just the fact that it's important that people know, like I know your passion, Al knows your passion, Kevin knows your passion, but it's important that, the fact that, I give you a platform that you can speak and converse and tell people what you think. I have some questions for you. I know we don't have you for a lot of time, but I'm going to get to these questions. I'm gonna let you answer this question that we're talking about. I'm gonna mute you, and then I'm gonna let you answer these questions. And then so go ahead, brother. Please rock on and tell me what you're feeling.
Okay, you were going in and out, so I couldn't really hear what you were saying in terms of the question. Can you
Okay.
repeat the question?
So basically, what I was just trying to say is I'm gonna let you follow up on this. But the bottom line is that I think you're supposed to be coming back on the 20th where you can elaborate more on certain things. But I'm going to read these questions that have been proposed to you from Mark, Nabala, Tashana. I'm gonna let you answer that because I don't know how long I have you. So I want you to answer these questions because people out here want to know what you're talking about and what you're feeling because you are running for the office, even though Al is in office and he has to speak to the constituents out here, and Pastor Graves is out here in the field, and me as a former law enforcement, I still get these calls all the time. But I think it's important that I wanted you to get your voice heard. So whatever you want to say, brother, and then we can go to some of these questions.
Okay, so I just strongly believe that our greatest power is when we are organized. I just believe in that. No government can make your life better if you don't choose to be better.
Right.
They can dump millions and millions of dollars on us, but if we're not ready to receive it, it will be money wasted. And so I want to look at the infrastructure that is us and how we receive these assets and these benefits so we can continue to build great institutions and create neighborhoods and living spaces that generations and generations can be proud of. Someone said, why are you running? I say, I see myself as a connector, as the bridge between what I know that what we did in the past, and give young people in the future that strength and that knowledge of what they are capable of doing. I really believe that if we don't understand our history and the things that we've already achieved, we really are going to be chasing our tail. But I grew up at a time as a kid when I saw what leadership looked like. And I saw how people sat together and how they held each other accountable and they got things done. Somebody earlier said, I remember all these youth programs and now they're gone. Well, the question is, how did those youth programs get there in the first place? Because the community was organized in a way to advocate for that, to bring those programs about. So you had How You Act and Model Cities. You had Dr. Kenneth B. Clark writing the book Youth in the Ghetto. You had attorney Fred Samuel, who was the first board chair of How You Act, and making sure that was a viable program. But then you had an Adam Clayton Powell, who was in Washington, who brought those monies in from Washington. So folks were working together. And so my point is, if we are going to survive as a community, no one can sit on the sideline. People got to be able to participate. And going to the city council is not just going there talking political philosophy, or what AOC is doing and what this one is doing. The question is, what do we do with the resources that we get and or the ones that we have access to? How do we use those in such a way that they become tools for leveraging other things that we need to do as a people?
Awesome.
That's what's really important. For example, even at the police precinct, I'm a professor at John Jay College, and we have the Explorers Club at different precincts. They're not even funded. I mean, I sit at John Jay teaching, and I got to tell you, you can count the number of Black males in my classes on half a hand. So we're not even being encouraged because of the current climate to look at serving the police department or the fire department or other things that move us up into the middle class. And so other groups are seeing this and they're taking advantage of it. And so that's why I'm saying there's a lot of stuff that we got to do in our community with our people. So therefore, whether it's public housing or they see a school building, we got to let them know that they got the power to really change their own direction, and that they don't have to keep waiting for someone to do something for them. They have the power to do themselves. And as we bring in resources, we want those resources to be leveraged. So it moves people into the middle class. It moves people into becoming owners, business owners, store owners. I want to see that. And so I approach government as merely a tool for investment. And that's what my pastor, Preston Washington, did when he had the Bradhurst Project. He said, listen, this should stimulate other kind of activities. And he said it should not stimulate gentrification. Gentrification happened in Harlem because around the city, many of us chose not to vote. And David Dinkins lost by 3%. And then what did that happen? When he lost that seat, we lost City Hall for 25 years. And in that 25 years, that's how Harlem got changed, because all that property, all that money went to other folks of other powers, and we got left out. So that's why I said I want to be like a political educator. I want to be a government educator to really show people how this really works and getting them to be accountable for what we do next.
I want to jump in there too, if you don't mind, just to add to what you were saying, William.
Please.
That's where the clergy comes in with regards.
Yes.
You had mentioned the Explorers. If the clergy, if I don't go to the precinct community council meetings and I don't say to those who are in attendance, we have an Explorers program for those teenagers, because we have police in the back. They're in the back, and we also have our CO, our commanding officer, or in this case would be Lieutenant Greeny, and he's right there. And if you have any questions, we have youth coordinating officers. So the clergy liaison's role is to go into the community to speak, not just the police now, but the clergy, the community partners are there to let the community know, go to our youth, talk to them, so that they're not seeing the police as an occupying force. Yes, there are issues within law enforcement. We can talk all night on that. But we need to now give the people the information. This is why it's important that the clergy leaders are in attendance. They go to the precinct community council meetings. They're going to the build-a-block meetings. Why? What's the purpose of this? To gather the information to take back to the congregation so that that information can now reach the masses. It can reach the community. So sorry to interrupt you.
No, absolutely.
No,
I mean, everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. This is a beautiful thing. We got my co-host. This is Real Talk Chronicles. Please like it, share it, subscribe to it. I got some questions, William.
Please.
I want to rock with you on it. first and foremost, and I'll let Pastor Graves and Al, whenever he comes back, to chime in when they get a chance. But because you're running for office, like I said, I want to highlight you. And these are people that are asking questions. My man Mark Walker off of YouTube, he said, Bill, if you can ask, has gentrification destroyed certain Black communities in Harlem? If there's a true neighborhood in Harlem like before, what do you think, William?
See, this is what I'm trying to explain. So, gentrification in the city of New York, we also supported it. It didn't come in by itself. We had control over the real estate. And so when we don't understand the political connection to economics, that's when we lose. Gentrification is how resources and power and money is moved. And so if you choose to be absent from that process, then your institutions will be negatively impacted. Up until the early 1990s, the Black church in Harlem had control of 82% of the real estate. And then when David Dinkins lost, when we lost political power, you had property that moved into other people's hands.
Yeah.
So that's why we got to understand this power of this vote. If we had controlled that vote, we would have a different Harlem today. Trust me. Preston Washington and all those other ministers at HCI, when they created that thing, the HCI, the development activities, they hired more Black architects, engineers, plumbers, carpenter, laborers. It was the first time that a child can walk past a development project in Harlem and see their father, their uncle, their nephew, whoever. You can see yourself working. That was the first time in history. And that's what the Black church did in Harlem. And that's in recent time. And then after that, when we lost political power, this is the Harlem we have now. You see these condominiums on different blocks. Well, that land was owned by the city government.
Awesome.
It was owned by the city. And so that means that we had the power to make sure that more working lower middle class housing was built. I mean, why can't there be more Esplanade Gardens?
Okay.
Why can't there be more river bends? You know, why can't there be these kind of Mitchell Lama projects? Why is Mitchell Lama dead? I mean, look at Co-op City. Look at the number of middle-class people that Co-op City created. You know, look at Rochdale Village. These are all Mitchell Lama co-ops. Look at the TIL program. The TIL program was horrible. The TIL program should have been permanently affordable. Nobody in the TIL program should have been able to get an apartment and then sell it for $5 million.
You know, that's a great point.
That was horrible. It should have been permanently affordable and ownership so you can save your doggone money. And then if you want to go buy some other land, you had that option. But not converting that property now to the billionaire class, that was a poor step. That was horrible.
That's awesome.
So my point, gentrification is not something that got dumped on us. It's when we choose not to claim our power and exercise our power. When we allow folks just to stand on the corner talking bull crap as opposed to coming to build. You know, and so therefore it's not just our women showing up at a tenant meeting, it's all of us participating. That's what makes the difference. So I'll give you one more example, and I'm gonna let these other questions move. Right. So Amadou Diallo was shot more than 40 times in a vestibule in a building in the Bronx.
I was there.
Right? But what folks don't understand, Reverend, the community council of the precinct was dormant. Nobody was going to the precinct community council in years. So there was no community police engagement. So some things we have to also accept as the problems that we also created.
Zero tolerance policy.
When we choose not to be involved and engaged, we have to also say, you know what? I also caused that bullet to hit my son.
That's deep.
So when people choose not to vote and not to participate, they're just as bad as anybody else who will claim to be the racists or the folks that are promoting gentrification. They're just as bad. And we got to be able to say that.
Hey,
we
Bill,
got to be able to say that.
How about the fact that people don't understand how the system works? Because, and I'm not trying to put anyone down, but we spend a lot of time focusing on the presidential election
Yeah,
when we forget, or maybe some of us just don't know, that the real election is actually in Congress.
that's
It's
right.
amongst the lawmakers.
That's right.
It's the House of Representatives and it's the Senate.
That's right.
Those are the lawmakers. Now,
That's
I'm
right.
not saying the president doesn't have power, but the movers and shakers of this country are right there in the House, are right there in Congress. That is where our focus should be. And of course, we know we have the Georgia
But it's
runoffs.
also in state and municipal legislative bodies. For example, if
Yes.
you look at some of the things that was passed by Al Taylor and his colleagues in the state legislature, if we didn't have an Al Taylor there and a Brian Benjamin and a Carl Hastings and Andrea Stewart Cousins, it would be different. I saw when it was different. Now, as black folks are the county chairs of 4 counties out of 5 counties in New York City. That means that they can control who becomes a judge in New York City. Most of our people see a judge before they see a politician. That's power. You got now the head of the Senate, the head of the Assembly, they're African Americans. So we got to be able to show people, as while we get these opportunities, what does this really mean? It would also mean that we all as a community got to also stay organized and support those people. Because no leader, any leader, all leaders count on the strength of their own community. If your community is not strong, you're not a strong leader. Al Taylor, the 70th Assembly District and the 71st Assembly District, I believe they were like the 2 Assembly districts that had the highest vote turnout in the presidential election. And because of that, we get a higher weighted vote as judicial delegates. We get a higher weighted vote as a county committee. And so you're right. We got to be able to have some process by which we're educating people on how this stuff works. Go ahead, Al.
Just unpack that for a minute. So you just talked about 2 other pieces of government that people don't know about. What is a county committee and what is a judicial delegate, and what's the relevance of those 2?
The county committee, when the Republicans took over the Congress from the Reagan era on up, they focused on the grassroots seats. They did not focus on public official seats. They focused on infrastructure stuff. County committees are the members of the local political party. If somebody vacates a public seat, the county committee is convened and they select the person that gets filled in. For example, Brian Benjamin and all his predecessors became state senator because there was a vacancy. Did you guys know that? Since the 1960s, every person that have served in Brian Benjamin's seat came through the county committee first. When Basil Patterson gave up the seat, everybody after him filled the vacancy through the county committee. So that's very, very powerful. Judicial delegates, they help to choose the people that go to serve in the Supreme Court out of our county, and they're very powerful people. So my point is, we got to always educate people on these different roles and also encourage them to play these roles. You know, the backbone of Democratic clubs in Harlem is the county committee and the judicial delegates and the people that they get to appoint as poll workers. You know, I know in my club, my county committee and my poll workers, I required them to be active tenant leaders or parent leaders. They got to be involved in something else other than the club. They got to be able to go back to their block and educate and empower people. And that's how we form a strong community, a very strong community. Al Taylor is blessed. Al Taylor and his district at Esplanade Gardens, they vote in primaries more than 90% of the time. They're what you call super prime voters. So when Esplanade Gardens, hey, William, what you doing? Can you come over? Before they can hang up the phone, I'm already there.
I'm already there.
Because you see what I'm saying? So just imagine if our entire community had that sense of engagement, how much power our leaders will have. That's power.
And even with regards to clergy, how many of us really are involved? how many of us even care about politics? Because look, I'm a
They got to be
minister
educated.
of the gospel.
The clergy got to be
I don't
educated.
care about Republicans,
That's
Democrats,
right.
Independents, and they'll sadly many of us have that mindset, and we want, because you know why? We don't see God in government. We don't
Well, here
think
we go.
God can move in government.
Okay, Pastor.
I'll stop there.
Right here. Jeremiah. It says, Jeremiah 29, seek the peace of the city, because if the city prospers, so shall you. So that's what the prophet said to those that were being taken away in captivity. It's going to be bad. It's going to get ugly. But I want you to seek the peace. So be peacemakers in that city. Grow, thrive, and marry, celebrate. Be a part of it. Because your success is predicated on their doing well. Now, this is what he said to his people that were being taken into captivity. And I share that with folks so that as a clergy, they did an article on me in Mennonite, and I was Mennonite USA. I'm the only Mennonite that is an elected official. And they said, well, how can you justify that? And I said, well, look, Nehemiah became the governor.
That's right.
When you look at Joseph was like prime minister. Why?
Second in command to Pharaoh.
Exactly. So we come up with these, and I say to anybody, if you can give me good reason why I should not be serving people, and it's from the Lord, I'm willing to take it. But the models that I see in the Old Testament show me that God is using government. He's using his people to be in the right place. Like, oh no, in the Old Testament, oh no. The king, he was a servant of the king, but at the same time, every time God had a message, he used this messenger in the king's place. And then you look at Nehemiah, who was a cupbearer for the king, who had favor, who became the governor after he rebuilt the walls of Jerusalem that nobody wanted to go do. So I see.
And did not Nathan the prophet speak truth to power? Okay.
Huh?
Did Nathan the prophet speak truth to King David? Come on now.
What? And then when they tried to come at Nehemiah, he was like, I ain't got time to come down off this wall. I'm building stuff. And he was strapped. I'm just saying.
Hey.
Hold on, everybody. This is Real Talk Chronicles. I'm your host, Bill Foster, with my co-host, Assemblyman Al Taylor, in the building. We got our special co-host with us this evening, Pastor Kevin Graves. And I got my man in the building, my college alumni brother, running for city council, district leader right now, William Anthony Allen, in the building. We got a lot of comments and questions coming in. I'm just going to try to read some of them, and then I'm going to do, because the one thing that you said, a lot of you chimed in on about how our community and policing come together. So I'm going to go that way with you, Will, and just ask you a question. But I just want to read some of these comments and questions, and you can chime in on all of them. Like I said, I don't know how long I have you. I don't know how long I have Al. I don't know how long I have Pastor. But I'm just trying to get them in. I'm trying to do better this year in the 2021 and not staying overboard. So right now, like Nabala has said, she said, really good points, Will. How do you change the culture of thinking that this is not my job? Because as you said, it is all our responsibility. Stay with me on that before you answer that. I definitely got to get Nabala, because she's going to be on tomorrow. So she's going to be talking about the vaccine. So everybody, tomorrow, Malika will be doing a segment. Usually she does her segment on businesses, but right now, because this COVID and this vaccine is so prominent in our lives right now, she is doing a special segment on vaccines, and she's having some people on her show, and they're going to be talking about the vaccines. So also, Suzanne said maybe it's all about building communities and spaces and not changing the culture. Exactly. Suzanne is alumni of, I'm just going to mute some of you guys. Suzanne said it's alumni of John Jay College. Mark Walker said, very good response. I wish the brother success in all his endeavors. He's talking about you, Will Allen, of course. Mark said also, this has been the problem throughout the community, the country, from Harlem to Miami, Dallas, and California, etc. Suzanne said, people don't realize the importance of local government. I'm just reading these comments and statements. Will, I ask you to go back and reply to some of them when you get a chance, or Al, whomever. Mark also said, absolutely, one of the general elections is over. Everyone stays home from local elections is sad. Why others come out to vote? Their children take the civil service exams. Exactly. That's a lot of YouTube people in there, people on YouTube, people on Facebook Live. My man Terrence, shout out to everybody on Facebook too. My man Terrence had a question. He had a good question. He said, any anti-poverty programs that doesn't have a strong compulsively work educational component and is counterproductive. The progressive liberal agenda of simply giving poor people free things have spawned a low work ethic and mental and spiritual atrophy. Um, some of us don't feel that we have a responsibility to even care for ourselves. We have to make lazy, irresponsible conduct unpopular. Going to parent-teacher conferences should be mandatory. Throwing garbage out of the apartment window should be a prosecutable offense. I feel that it's not a crime to be poor, but there is no excuse for being trifling. Bridges is in the building. Earl also said, shout out to Earl. He said we must empower the youth as well as grown folks, motivate and congratulate. William Allen, they are out here listening to you, brother. They out here trying to give you some support. Of course, this is Assemblyman Al Taylor's hour. Pastor Graves, thank you also. Will, you know, let me pick anyone that if you hear anything that you wanted to pick on and that you want to chime in on and jump on.
I wish I can see it, but this I don't have. When I open the chat, I lose you guys' faces. So, like I said, I'm on my phone, so I'm limited in terms of what I can see. I wish I had a full screen to see everything. Normally, when
I want you to come back,
you can see the chat, you can see the people and the chat, but I can't do it. How do we help people to become accountable? We gotta, just like we're responsible to speak truth to power. We must speak the truth to our people. We must create vehicles by which we can live by the example. And when they see things are happening, we can tell them this is why it's happening. And if they want things to really improve, we got to say to them that we must turn to ourselves to make these improvements, because as we turn to ourselves and build, the other resources that we attract that'll be additional support. Like I said earlier, you can rebuild a city, but if a people is not prepared to receive it, it's a wasted investment. And so we got to really change the people to make sure that as we get these resources, that they can get these resources and leverage it to do even better things. So this is what I tell young people, and I tell everybody. You know, before I've been at the National Action Network, we have hundreds.
We lost you.
Hey, Teddy.
Hold on, everybody. This is Real Talk Chronicles. I'm your host, Bill Forster, with my co-host, Assemblyman Al Taylor, in the building. And, until we get these individuals back, I might have to throw some of these questions at Assemblyman Al Taylor and what he thinks and stuff like that. Lorraine, I see you in the building. She said, we have to educate. I asked some young adults, why don't they vote? Their answers were for whatever. Exactly. This is a sad thing that we have to talk about. Al, I'm going to ask you this question. It's really directed to William Allen, but you are a politician, so it is directed to you. How do we bring the community and law enforcement together? Let's I'm prior law enforcement. Of course, I don't believe in defunding. I think that's the word that people use. I think people are speaking, and trust me, I will ask the mayoral person, Eric Adams, this question also when I interview him. I don't believe in defunding law enforcement, but I don't believe in lawlessness. As an African American, you can't blame, i.e., the white man all the time when you are out here acting reckless, right? Because the bottom line is there has to be accountability, right? With that being said, how do we bring the community and law enforcement together, where law enforcement and this is might be, it's not a trick question, but there might not be an answer to this. This is all opinionated. Um, how do we bring them together without uh, people of color feeling like they are being ostracized and they're the problem? Go ahead, Assemblyman. Unmute yourself, please. Or did I mute you? Let me see.
Um,
I got you. I got
I
you.
mean,
Hold on. I got you. Yeah,
okay. I
got you.
think we have to be careful about the narrative that we follow. So, defund police didn't come from New York City, but across the social platform medias, it flew. And some people migrated to it, but it wasn't here. And it didn't speak to our culture, and it doesn't speak to our culture. What do we want? We want to look at community policing different, maybe, than the way we have it right now. We want to see how we can have more engagement, more interactive. So for me, my position is if you put 20 billion into the police department, then give me 20% of that to make sure that we're putting it back into communities of color where you could do something. So I'm not going to jump on the narrative that we have to defund police. I think that was drastic. I think it was soundbite. I think it went a long way. So and just last week when we were debating the bill that we passed, that says there's a moratorium that no one can be evicted in the state of New York from now up until May 1st. We may come back and extend that, but the Republicans on the other side of the aisle start saying, oh, this is part of the conspiracy to defund police. It's about lawlessness. It depends on who's telling that damn story. Because when I look at the white folks that tear up the city, whether they're celebrating for their team that won, then it's just some good old boys that celebrate and they may have gotten out of hand. But if you burn one damn thing, a trash can, and you're celebrating your team winning and you're black, then you're rioting and looting and everything in between. So the narrative has never been equally fair. So depending on the reporters and who's telling the story, they make us look like villains when we're not. So when you look at the earthquakes and the natural disasters that have happened, in one place they'll say, oh, these people are going into the stores to get the basic essentials of what they need to survive to get out of this crisis. And then when you're in Haiti and they're doing it, they're saying they're looting, the stores are collapsed. There's a 6 point something earthquake. They're getting for survival. So we have to be careful whose narrative and whose water we're carrying. I don't think most New Yorkers wanted to defund police. One of the things that I saw, and I have to say this, on 125th Street in front of the state office building, one of the first Black Lives Matter gathering or something, William Allen was right there with me. The first thing I did a peripheral walk of the area, and I saw that there were a lot of white folks, but the white folks that I saw didn't act like white folks that I'm used to seeing in New York. They were like, we ain't come in for that. What the hell? I'm like, did a white person just say that? Like, they want some beef. But the interesting thing was the white people were in the back, in the peripheral part, and the blacks in front of them, and in front of the blacks were the cops. So if they create or incite anything, the people in the middle were going to be the blacks. So there was definitely some agitators in the city of New York that didn't come from this community that were hyping up stuff. So I have a problem with that. I think that we need to figure out how do we, and I had this conversation with Police Commissioner Ray Kelly. Commissioner Ray Kelly reached out to me, I don't know, 16, 15 years ago. He called me and he says, Reverend Al, I'm like, yeah. I didn't know who the heck he was. He said, I understand you're doing a great job. You're doing this prayer walk up in Harlem. You got these man up programs, you in different public housing, da da da. I said, well, thank you so much. I said, so who is this again? He said, Ray. I'm like, Ray who? Commissioner Ray Kelly. And this was at the conclusion of the phone call. So my guys and I had raised close to $3,000. And what we wanted to do in that community was send kids to camp that we knew their parents couldn't afford to send them. We raised the money, paid for the camp, but didn't have the transportation. And I remember in the conversation, because he came to my church, the commissioner, sat down and talked to me. He said, well, how can I help you? I said, I don't know how you can help me, but right now I need a bus to get these kids to camp. And the reason I'm bringing this up, because I have a postcard. That postcard has got to be about 14 years old. And if I can remember it, next month I'll have it so you can see it. But someone put it together. and it's black and white and it's in color. The black and white pictures show the kids very standoffish. These kids were like 12, maybe 11. They were very standoffish. They didn't want to have anything to do with the popo. That was the day that the bus picked them up. And they gave us a training bus, one of the white buses with air conditioning and nice, comfortable seats, like a school bus. But when those kids came back, you see one kid with the police hat on, another one with the nightstick. And it's those type of encounters and engagement that will help to build and bring the relationships closer. Will it ever be perfect? No. But we're trying to undo something that's maybe 40, 50 years old. And all we can do is one community at a time, one step at a time. And I think William Allen mentioned, you have to be a part of the process. You're either a part of the solution or you're part of the problem. And when you engage and you're having dialogue with the police, I got stopped by a police commander. He stopped and frisked me. He had only been in the district for 2 days, 2 weeks. I'm dressed to the nine. I'm on my way. Just got my trim. I'm on my way to pick up my cap and gown because I'm getting my master's that day. And it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon on St. Nick. It's sunny, it's beautiful, and I hear whoop whoop. I look, I'm like, man, those cops going up the wrong way, coming up St. Nick, man. They after somebody. Dude, they stopped right in front of me. I'm like, wow, what's going on here? I'm looking around like, oh, I'm in the middle of something. And the guy gets out, and I know he's the commander. He's got the white shirt. I know that much. And he said, we have a report of a guy with a gun. And I'm suited up. I'm laughing like, are you serious? And so I identify myself. I say, I am chief of staff for this legislator. And I'm also on the commissioner's, he had a task force with religious leaders. And I said, I'd be more than happy to show you some identification if you will allow me. Now, at this time, somebody's coming up behind me. He stops. I'm talking to the guy in the white shirt, the commander, and somebody else. And he says, sure. So I said, I'm going to take my right hand. I'm going to reach in the back because I know the guy's behind me. I'm going to take out my wallet. Can I give it to you? He says, sure. With his permission, I started. And then he stepped in front of me, put his foot between the two of mine in that 45-degree, kind of like stopped me. He cut my movement off. So I'm like, okay. And then the other guy comes up and he starts patting me and takes out my wallet. Now I said, if you wanted to do that, I would have easily put my hands on the car and we could have done this that way. But you gave me permission to take out. That's what I'm pissed about. Now, if my son was there, he would not have known how to react or what to do next. And so I was all on him. So the next day, I'm in his office. He's a new commander, and he was scheduled to meet with the legislator who he didn't know I worked for. And I walk in, and old boy gave me an apology. So I had 2 calls I could make. One call was figure out how you're going to get down this, or the other was going to be the Reverend Al Sharpton, and we're going to shut this guy down. But I thought, if you shut him down, all they're going to do is move him. He needs to learn how to act, how to behave, and grow on this. We became best buds. He gave me his cell number. I gave him mine when I called him. And before he left with his new command, he and I was cool beans. Not because he did something favorable to me, but he had to understand when you see a black person, they're not automatically guilty. And some people are who they say they are. But you needed to start working from a one-on-one perspective. A lot of people said, man, you should have picketed and shut them down. That's not going to transform that individual. No. They're going to put that somewhere else, and somebody else is going to have that problem. So I think if we're going to do building, it's going to take a lot of bartering, a lot of trust. They're going to have to take a lot of crap from us because we're operating from a skeptic perspective. But all that you can do to help and create more engagement, then I think the more opportunities that are genuine and talk about the things that you fear and hear, and they got to receive it, and we have to be allowed the space to say it without being disrespectful, I think we can grow. And there's a group of people out there that, you out your damn mind, won't have nothing to do with cops. They hate cops. That's their problem. And we can't change their old negative behavior. But there are a lot of young ones that we can impact. And if they want to see a different law enforcement, then they can be a part of that and go into the academy. And let's make opportunities available for them. That's how we transform.
Awesome, awesome. I'm going to come to William Allen. Pastor, I'll come to you after. Everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. I'm your host, Bill Forster, with my co-host, Assemblyman Al Taylor. This is Real Talk with Al Taylor every first Monday of the month. And we have a special co-host with us, Pastor Kevin Graves. And we have Councilman hopeful William Allen with us. William, as we see the contour of your house as you move so effortlessly through your apartment, I want to ask you, being prior law enforcement, we're talking about, we see how the streets have gotten lawless right now. We see how there's just no respect for police. But we are from that group that we believe in law and order. What would be something, if you had a platform, if you become a councilman, you're able to converse with somebody, what would be some things that you would try to implement or ask them to implement in lieu of law enforcement and communities? Let me unmute you. Let me see. I got you. Hold on.
Shoes
Go ahead.
off.
I got you.
Yeah. So what's the question?
Oh, okay. That's cute. Uh, um, the question is, I said, due to the lawlessness that's happening in New York right now, you becoming a councilman, what would be some of the things, if you whomever you had a platform to talk to, the mayor or the police commissioner, what would be some of the things that you would try to implement or ask them to implement to bring the communities and police together to have a better relationship?
Well, I will first want a full, detailed presentation of how the police department is structured and organized. I would want to look at every single department. I would want to know, how is the police academy organized? Who are the professors? I would like to see the syllabus of the courses that they teach. Who's doing the training? I would just bring a little bit more transparency to the department, because it's not, the whole department should not be a military department. It should be public safety. And I think our police has become like
Really?
so militarized that it's almost like you can't see what the hell is going on. And I think that's part of people's concern. They can't really see things. And so I would try to really organize somewhat of a dog and pony show for community leaders, in terms of, how's the department made? How's it funded? I mean, what does the department need for community support? And what does the community need from the police department? Um, I said earlier, I like to see the Explorers really funded. I would like to see the police community council better funded. I don't want to see them just get a couple of $100 so they can have, some chicken wings and cake and cookies every month at a meeting. I really want it to be a strategic element of community and police engagement. I would like to see, during the David Dinkins administration, those safe city, safe streets. I miss the beat cops. I really do. I mean, they're in cars all the time. So how do you give a relationship? You don't know who the hell they are. And I think that's part of why there's such a great distance between our community and them, because we really don't see them. But also, that also is the case in white communities too. But in our community, because our communities are poor, the incident of capital crimes and street crimes, of course, are graded based on income, right? And unfortunately, sometimes all the based on race too, which is kind of sad. So I would probably want to organize those kind of presentations to get to learn the department, and so therefore we can then begin to ask some intelligent questions about what is the reimagining of that department, so people can feel safe, not only in their community against criminals, but they can feel safe by the folks that are charged to protect them.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Now, of course, like me being prior law enforcement, like I said, I go around the country and I do all these speaking engagements on how to interact with law enforcement and things of that magnitude, from adults to children, or how to have some kind of protective, defensive mentality. Now, when you talk about public safety, elaborate on that, because you said about you wanted to know where the teachers are coming from. What do you think the teachers should have to teach law enforcement, or teach? Because the bottom line is, individuals like myself, I I become ostracized from law enforcement because I speak out on how to interact with law enforcement because I'm not John and Jane Q uh, pro cop and their mentality. If I say anything that's for a person of color, it's like, wait a minute, oh, you're not cop. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, it's not that I'm anti-police, but I always tell people I'm pro my color, I'm pro black. So when you talk about public safety, what do you mean public safety for law enforcement?
Well, meaning that the task of the police department, of municipal police department, historically and otherwise, their task is public safety. That is the job, right? And some of the other roles that the department is playing is sort of outside the scope. And so it puts, like, for example, in terms of mental health issues. I mean, it's this. You think of Eleanor bumpers, but you still have these Eleanor bumpers, such as what all around the place. Look what happened up in Buffalo.
Yeah.
And cops are not trained to. I mean, I don't know how they're trained at the academy to deal with mental health challenges. I
Well,
don't know.
let me just interject real quick and tell you real quick. I agree with you that there should be some kind of liaison to interact. My personal feeling is that there should be somebody working on each tour, maybe working out of the borough of of those multiple commands that deals with mental issues. You know, like we have a suicide person. You know what I'm saying? To talk somebody out of suicide. So I agree with you with that aspect because we need somebody that can come in and de-escalate a mental issue because to see people of color getting shot all the time and people saying, oh well, he had a gun, he had a knife. Yo, but wait a minute, you knew he had mental issues. That's problematic to me as a person of color and as yourself and Al
That's
and
right.
Pastor Graves. So I get that. Do I feel the teachers in the academy? Let me tell you something from
So
my own.
here's what I'm saying, Bill. So what I'm saying, I don't know what the curriculum really looks like. That's what I'm saying. I don't know who the teachers are and how they're trained to train these young people.
Right.
We don't have a clue of what's going behind those walls. And
Right.
because we don't have a clue, we're led to other kind of understandings and perceptions of stuff. The presentation skills and the New York City Police Department historically have been lacking, where they're unable to explain why certain situations took place. They're not able to best explain certain events. And
I
I
agree.
think,
I agree. I agree.
yeah, and so they might be right, but because they don't know, they don't have the presentation skills. It leads people of color who historically have been demonized and terrorized by the police. It constantly leads us to another kind of understanding. That's why I said earlier, I'm a professor at John Jay. John Jay motto is fierce advocates of justice. Fierce advocates of justice. And in my classes at John Jay, because of the current police community relationships throughout America, I have seen like no black males in my classes. None. I mean, I see Dominicans, I see all the other people who are brown, but in terms of black folks, there is none. And that for me is a problem when a whole cultured future generation does not see public safety professional positions an option to look at.
I agree. Listen, Will, William, I totally agree with you. I think, like you said, me personally, and I'm talking from internally, the people that when I came through the academy, they weren't a lot. Maybe a few of them had street time. A lot of those individuals had degrees, but they didn't have street credibility.
Exactly.
You didn't bring a Bill Foster in. And that's what I hope with the new administration, if I have
Exactly.
anything to say, that you'll bring a Bill Foster in that his whole career was in the streets. You understand what I'm saying? So tactically, I can put me against anybody, and anybody that's ever worked with me will co-sign me because they know what I've been through. You understand what I'm saying? And they
Yeah.
know what the thing is. Now, the bottom line is, and no disrespect to anybody that's a bookworm or book knowledge or more book savvy, but the bottom line is to read scriptures and terminology and law will not help you in the street. It just help you in the processing aspect. So maybe that's a part of law enforcement that needs to be changed. Keep the people that know the law at the precincts so they can articulate this collar, this arrest,
That's right.
instead of people out there in the street like myself to know how to tell people how to interact when it comes to law enforcement and implementing a apprehension. Because let me tell you something, second to none to how to de-escalate. But first, second to none too, I have to put my hands on you. I'll put my hands on you. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because I've asked anybody when I've had these conversations in the barbershops or wherever I've gone, that anybody that knows me, I said, listen, you know me. Any situation you want to do politically, God forbid, if I've tried to articulate how it could have went another way, I said, you know me. If I did that, what would you say? They would be like, oh, he deserved it, or she deserved it, or whomever deserved it. Why? Because you know me. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that
yeah.
goes back to what you were saying, William, about having to beat cops. You know, now in lieu of talking about beat cops, in law enforcement, everybody is trying to advance their careers. So how long do we have that B cop? Because there isn't any incentive for him to stay on the coal or stay on that post. When I did the business post on 125 from 8th to 7th, there isn't any incentive for me besides having maybe a Sunday, Monday off. But the bottom line is, otherwise than that, I don't get put in for this or special grade or assignments or things like that, and then they look for arrests and things like that. So incentive is lost in that. But I commend you for what you're saying. Shout out to everybody that's chiming in. Elkie Soul, I see you. She says, "How do we feel about what happened to Trumper, uh, Kenyon Harrell and his son downtown in Soho? What regards with regards to New York law enforcement?" To Sean, she said, what happened to the neighborhood watch? Sharon said, Sharon Saunders, my neighborhood battles mental illness and I call 911 and they send cops and an ambulance. She was sitting quietly telling them her struggles, not aggressive at all. Instead of trying to help her, what did they do? Let me see. Let me try to bring this up a little more. I'm sorry, everybody. I'm just trying to read this. And she said, showing her struggles, not aggressive at all. Instead of trying to help her and take her to the hospital, they tried to arrest her instead. It appears that when law enforcement is involved, all they know is how to arrest and not assist. Let me just tell everybody out there right now, from a law enforcement standpoint, law enforcement has a small curriculum in what they do with dealing with the mental illness, with people with mental illness. What that means is that we either isolate and contain, and we call a supervisor, or we call EMS, the bus, as you know it, the ambulance. That's all we do. Now, we don't know how to do it. Now, certain times when calls come over, person with a gun, a man with a knife, or a woman with a knife, unless you know how to deal with that, that's why I'm a firm believer in inner city people becoming police officers and things of that magnitude, because I think it's imperative. Because my thing is not that people outside of people of color don't know how to deal with people with mental illness, because mental illness has no ethnicity and it has no color. Bottom line is, we don't want. I just did this on the show last month in December. Kevin and I did the thing where we showed how officers responded to a job with a man that had mental illness, and Pastor Graves was there. But you know what? The officer wasn't wrong in shooting, but one officer with 16 years was trying to de-escalate the situation, and he wasn't ready to pull out his gun. But the white officer with 3 years, he shot. So let's understand these mentalities. Shout out to everybody on YouTube. Al Taylor, I want to bring you in on what are you thinking about when we talk about this stuff like that? I know District Leader William Allen, he's somewhere. We might have lost him between the stairs and the chairs.
Hey,
Well, hopefully
hey, Bill, I gotta.
he'll
Hey,
come
Bill.
back. He might.
Hey, Bill.
Yes.
So
I have to go. I have to be
Go
on
ahead.
another
Sure, please.
program. But when you get a chance, ask the district leader. There's two questions. I put them in the chat. I don't know if they're still there. Ask him, who is William Allen? That's the first question. Who is William Allen? And the second question is, what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind?
And before you
Maybe we can
go,
work.
can you give
Yeah.
us a rundown of what we have coming up in regards of the 11th and the other dates that we have? Because you set up some good that we have
11th
the
and the 13th.
the 13th. Go ahead, please.
Yes. On January 11th, 2021, which is a Monday, we have Pastor Johnny Brown, who's going to be on Real Talk Chronicles discussing financial literacy. And on January 13th, which is a Wednesday, 2021, we're going to have one NYPD outreach coordinator by the name of Enid Ocasio, who's going to discuss domestic violence with us. And also another expert in the area of domestic violence, Doreen Lassane. So that's going to be Pastor Johnny Brown on the 11th of January at 7 p.m. And the discussion is going to be financial literacy. And the 13th will be domestic violence with Enid Ocasio of the NYPD and Doreen Lassane.
Awesome. Thank you. That's our special guest co-host, Pastor Kevin Graves. We will not be here Wednesday coming up because I'm going to let you, we're not going to be here this Wednesday because it's my birthday. I'm coming around the sun. And I've never worked on my birthday in no city job I've ever had. So I'm not working on my own podcast. I'm not working. So the bottom line, we will be back on a Monday. We have Assemblyman Al Taylor with us in the building. We have District Leader William Allen and Pastor Kevin Graves. He is leaving us. We are not going to stay past. We have 8 minutes. So we're going to leave it to any questions or comments William Allen and Al Taylor want to have. Pastor Graves, I will see you very soon. I appreciate everything that you do. Happy New Year. Blessings to you and your family. Everybody, I see you out here.
Likewise.
bless you, Pastor.
All right.
God bless your family. God bless you. I'll see you soon.
So
Okay,
William Allen, we have some questions and comments in here.
Okay.
I don't know if you're going to be able to see any of them or answer any of them.
No, I can't see them. You have to tell me.
I got you. So let me just see. How do you feel about let me just read this. I don't know if you heard this. I'm gonna go back to Sharon. I see you, Elkie. Excellent questions that you asked. I'm just gonna ask you this question on your regards from your personal experience and from an African American and from somebody that goes in city council. And Al Taylor, I want you to comment on it. And then I'll tell you, please go back later on and answer these questions and comment to these people. Sharon said, my neighborhood battles mental illness and I call 911 and they send cops and the ambulance. She was sitting quietly telling them her struggles and not aggressive at all. Instead of trying to help and take her to the hospital, they tried to arrest her instead. It appears that when law enforcement is involved, all they know is arrest and assist. What do you think about that when they deal with mental illness?
That's my question, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that the city, it looked like we haven't learned our lesson since Eleanor Bumpus, to be honest with you. I mean, we keep talking about this, but it seemed like it's just talk. And I don't know whether or not the state legislature can actually, can do something about it. Because actually the police department is an administrative body, right? But the people that makes the laws sit in Albany and they sit in the city council. And so the question for me is, what is the current city council, what committee has oversight over the police department? And what is their responsibility to address the inequities and problems that the department face and in terms of some of these situations? I want to be able to make clear of who has what role to play, and one in terms of the legal side, creating the laws, what are the administrative rules. There got to be some kind of coming to Jesus, excuse the pun, in terms of at who's responsible for what, and so we can then determine how we can go forward. Because right now, the problems of the police department is not just the making of the police department. The police department are not legislators, and so we got to be able to have a real honest discussion about this mental health piece from a legislative perspective, so the police department can be directed in terms of how it handle these kind of situations in the future.
Awesome. Al Taylor, do you want to chime in? Because I'm going to leave it to Will Taylor or William Allen, and then we can close out later on. I don't want to hold him past the 2 hour mark. I don't want to hold you
Well,
past the
listen,
2 hour mark. I don't want to hold
let
me
me.
past the 2 hour mark. Go
No,
ahead,
no,
brother.
no. I'm gonna jump in and jump out. I've got to hit the road, man. My bag is packed. I'm headed to Albany as soon as I jump off here. I
Okay.
have to be there tomorrow and Wednesday. But I think William Allen framed it correctly. It's legislative, and city council does have a role to play in what they can ask the police department to do. As state legislators, we can, but we have to do it on a bigger level. So what we would pass, ideally will speak to every law enforcement agency within the state of New York, not just New York City municipality, but Buffalo, Rochester, and every little small place in between. And we did a lot of that in this last prior session and also in 2019. So I think William Allen really touched on it when he talked about transparency. And if we can understand what is being taught to some level to the law enforcement officials, what's the blue book? So when I became deputy chief clerk for New York City Board of Elections, sound familiar, William?
Yes.
They gave me a policy and manual book. So I understood everything about that agency that they had in black and white by reading it and going through page by page and asking questions, and then the living experience of going through it. So I knew what I was working with. If we can create that type of transparency on this side of the ledger so that community leaders and folks that are vested in the communities have a working knowledge of how this works. So if you get this call, what do you do? If you get this call, what do you do? So as a former military police officer, I mean, I carried a 45, a nightstick, rocked with a shotgun in a patrol car, and nothing was faster than a Motorola. I don't care how fast you drove, the Motorola will shut you down at some point. Now they have even all this other technology, but we were always taught, one, there was never a round in the chamber in my 45. Like if my duty sergeant stepped up and decided to check me out at any hour of the shift that I'm on, and he asked for my weapon, and I give it to him, there cannot be. I'm not saying that's how everybody has to operate in New York City. It's a different animal. But we didn't have a round in the chamber. We were not allowed to have a round in the chamber. But also we understood that if there was a way, and I think you said it, Bill, one, we want to de-escalate. And if nobody's life is in harm's way and we can hold it, whether I'm talking to you for 2 minutes or 2 hours or 2 days, it is what it is. I don't have to kill you or hurt you if you're not a threat to yourself or anybody else, and we remove those other threats. So if I've gotten you, everybody out of the building, just you running around with your own gun in your hand going crazy, we can talk till the cows come home as long as you can't hurt anybody. I think it's about humanity and what you're bringing into that space. So the senior guy that you referenced for 16 years on the force had a different perspective than the guy 3 years on. He's like, yo, I got to drop this guy. I still have it in my manual. But one of the things I learned, and this is why I left the military, they wouldn't send me to DEA school. The guys that were around me knew less than nothing. They were white, and I'm not saying white people aren't smart, but those guys had no street cred. I'm coming straight out of Harlem, straight out into this world while I'm working, and I understand what weed smell like. I don't need to go to a course to understand what weed smells like, what coke looked like. I already understood that coming from my community. But those guys were being promoted and sent to DEA school, and people like me were put on beat work, or they wanted me to work undercover. But anytime they wanted me to do something I didn't want to do, then they put me right back in uniform in the same place that they had me working undercover. So I couldn't work with those guys. So there is racism, and it's systemic, and we have to unpack it. And I think the first place to start is looking at what is being trained and how we can model that better. Because in my mindset, Eleanor Bumper is right there. They shot that woman 2 times. They said they fired once and they killed her. That's not true. The first blast took off her finger because they found her thumb in the apartment 2 days, 3 days later.
Yeah.
So that didn't kill her, but the second shot killed her. So they executed her, all because of she was being evicted. Nowhere in America are you executed because you didn't pay your rent or you got to get out of the apartment, unless you're black and poor.
Absolutely. Everybody, that's Assemblyman Al Taylor. Al, give us some words of wisdom before you leave, and then William Allen, I'll let you close out. I know you're coming back with us, and Al is always welcome to come back, of course, before his time. But Al, give us some words of wisdom, and then we'll close us out. And everybody, this is Real Talk Chronicles. You know, I don't want to hold anybody past this time. So go ahead, Al.
Bill, thank you. Thank you so much for how this whole idea of creating Real Talk came along, but also not just how it came about, but that your insistence that it goes to this level. Something, and I know you and Allison talked about that in the passing of your mother, but you held on to an idea and you brought it into a reality. And I want to say to and my brother William Allen, we go back. I am in. Let's make this comment. I am involved in the political process at the level that I am in because this man recommended that I take the internship while in college with Denny Farrell. I didn't know who the heck he was. So William Allen was the Poindexter of political people in Harlem and New York State. And we were in a student gathering, University Student Senate, and he was like, "Yeah, you doing well? Yeah, Denny Farrell." Like he knew the guy. I'm like, I couldn't even say his name. I was like, Denny Farrell. He said, Denny Farrell. Yeah, take that intern with him. He's shared banks and da. So the rest is history. And I'm saying that to people that are listening today, don't let us shape and form your narrative. Go for it yourselves. Go get off the sideline. This is not a spectator sport. You do not have to be elected. Let me say this. From the time you were born to the time you die, your life is legislated. People are making decisions about your life. And I want to echo what my brother William Allen said. Get involved and be a part of the process. And thank you. This is Real Talk. Bless you.
Thank you. Well, William Allen, please finish us out, brother, because you're running for city council. Give people, I think you're supposed to be coming back on the 20th.
I'm on the 20th.
Yes.
So Al is right. I know, Al, thank you for acknowledging me. I appreciate that. And I do remember those early moments when we were all 3 of us was college students at the City University of New York. And it was a great place for me. And I learned a lot. I learned that when one wants to do something, you don't need an appointment. You make it happen. Yes. You know, and that's something I always tell young people, that we all have a chance to shape history. You know, when I was a little kid, my mom took me to a church service at New Mount Zion Baptist Church. And actually, it was an Easter Sunday. And the guest preacher for that service was Adam Clayton Powell. And I was a little kid, but I was so mesmerized by this guy. He was so animated. And I remember one of the things he said, your hands change things. He said, there was a man that was flying a kite, and all he had was a string in his hand, and there was electricity. And then he said, there was a man who stretched his hands out, and they were flooded with blood and nails, and he separate time, BC from AD. And I said, so I'm always thinking of that sermon, that we have this power in our own motion to change things and to better things. You don't have to wait for other people, but just imagine as a community that we move in lockstep and we choose to be accountable. How much more control we will have. You know, when you have control of your economic resources in your community, and young people have pride, other folks that come to serve your community will have to fall in line to the culture that you establish. And so I'm a part of that band. And that band said, you know what? We're some powerful people. We're very wealthy people. And as we begin to learn more about the coordination of stuff, we're going to be very strong. And so, running for the city council, people always see me in these kind of roles. And I got to tell you, my job will be to be the educator, to make sure that folks understand how these institutions work and how to access them and who has what power. That's why I said earlier, I just don't blame the NYPD for all this stuff because they're an administrative agency. I want to be able to talk about the role of the city council, the state legislature, the mayor, the governor. They all at fault. Just stop blaming one group of people. Stop scapegoating folks. Let's come together and really figure out what the problems are and solve it. That's it. So that's my last remarks.
I wish you all the best of luck. As my college alumni brother, if you ever need me, I'm here for you. I wanted to give you this platform to give you a chance to converse and tell people what you want. You're back on the 20th. That'll be the 20th. Also, Borough President Eric Adams will be on the show. Al Taylor, this is your show, so you can come back on any show, not just on your Monday. So if you want to come back in on that day, you let me know. We could just chop it up. We'll talk later. Please travel safe. William Allen, please. Al Taylor,
be careful, Al.
Al Taylor, let them know how they can find you if they need you, and William Allen, let them know how they can find you if they need you. Go ahead, Al Taylor first.
Taylor A at nyassembly.gov. Taylor A at nyassembly.gov or 212-234-1430. We were working remotely, but we'll hit your call back in 24 hours, guaranteed. Don't call on Friday and say you didn't get a call back on Sunday.
William Allen, please let them know if they want to contribute to your campaign. Anything, can they reach you?
They can. Your audience can call me 917-612-2871. I pick up directly. I'm like a small town politician. I answer all my calls. 917-612-2871. Now I can't stay on the phone with you for 3 hours, but certainly I'm going to pick up and we're going to figure out how we can help each other. So that's 917-612-2871.
Brother, Happy New Year to both of you.
Happy New Year.
I will talk to both of you later on. I will talk to you both of you later on. Go ahead. Please travel safe.
Bless you.
Everybody, that was Real Talk Chronicles. Love these guys. Listen, I'm your host, Bill Forster. That was Assemblyman Al Taylor. That was Council Hopeful William Allen coming. Hey, listen, these guys are trying to do things. This is Real Talk Chronicles, everybody. I'm your host, Bill Forster. We are trying to do things that are about positivity and bringing light to everything. I wish you all the best. I see you, Elkie. Once upon a time, my neighbor Carlton. Yes, I remember when Real Talk started. I saw you, brother. Shout out to all my YouTube people, Mark and Suzanne. Blessings. Please, if you don't subscribe to it, please subscribe to it. Share it. I ask you all, let me tell you something. Carlton, I've been one of the top promoters in the city for a long time. It is the hardest thing to keep positivity going out here in this world. And this is what I'm doing. I'm just trying to share some love and some passion and keep the memory. We will not be here Wednesday with Kevin because it's my birthday and I don't work on my birthday. You can understand that. So I don't know what the wife has planned for me during this pandemic. Maybe you can ask her, reach out to her, and maybe we'll do some kind of Zooming and some celebratory thing. She will be here tomorrow. She's not doing her normal small business segment. She is having people here, and we're going to talk about the vaccine. And she will be conversing with people that have taken the vaccine and the do's and the don'ts and the misclaimers in regards to the vaccine. We have a schedule, as Pastor Graves had also said. We have people talking about domestic violence. People have coming about financial literacy. We have Borough President Mayoral Hope Eric Adams coming on the 20th. I'm trying to set up something after that where maybe, of course, William Allen is coming back and maybe some other people that are running for office. I'll reach out to them and see if I can get them to come on the 20th. And maybe in the second segment of that show, they can converse and talk about their dreams. I'm not sitting here. I'm not um, putting my name behind anybody. I just want them to tell you what they feel. Shout out to my YouTube people chiming in, Mark, Suzanne. I see a lot of you, Nabala. So a bunch of others I didn't get a chance to say hello to. I see you, Lorraine, and Tashana, and all the people. Sharon, great questions, all of you. Um, what else do I want to say in regards to anything else that's happening? Um, Protect yourself. COVID is paramount. Oh, on the 20th, I think that's the 20th, I have Dr. Marilyn Corder, my cousin, world-renowned doctor. You can Google her if you need to, with Real Talk with Allison Williams. She will be talking about the vaccine, the do's and don'ts, the disclaimers, the omens, the myths, whatever. She will be here to talk about that with you. So let me run down the itinerary for you. No Wednesday. It's my birthday. Go Billy. It's your birthday. Exactly. Next Monday, we will have a person here, thanks to Pastor Graves, talking about literacy. So if you want to know how to get your stuff together, finances and things in that magnitude, please chime in. That Wednesday, I think it's the 13th, we have some people here talking about domestic violence. I didn't get a chance to do anything in October about domestic violence, but I will harp on that and talk about that in domestic violence. Pastor Graves will be back, of course, with Kevin Branzetti. The following week, with Allison Williams, we have Marilyn Corder, Dr. Marilyn Corder out of the DMV area, world-renowned doctor. She will talk about, she's chief of staff at a hospital and other things with her credentials. She took the vaccine. She's my first cousin, not 19th cousin. She's my first cousin. She will be with us to talk about um, the myths and the omens of taking the vaccine. Do you want to or do you not? I'm working on some other things too, behind the scenes. Looking for some confirmations that I'll slide in with that. I have some other stuff coming up. I have some martial arts stuff coming up in the future. So I got a lot of things coming up, man. I'm working, man. I'm trying. So if you're on YouTube, like it, share it, spread the word. Let them know. Real Talk Chronicles, we're here, baby. I'm not going nowhere. When everybody goes back out there in the world, I'm gonna still be here. I'm your host, Bill Forster. This was Real Talk with Assemblyman Al Taylor. He was in here chiming in. We had a special guest, Councilman Hopeful William Anthony Allen. We had Pastor Kevin Graves in the building. Thank you for all his help and things of that magnitude. So everybody, shout out to Carlton TNT, my man. Shout out to all of you just chimed in with us. This is Real Talk Chronicles, man. Uh, Happy New Year, and I'll see you soon. Okay? Peace.